Be sure to check out Rise Radio, available today on your favorite podcast platforms. Join Rise Radio on a journey to discover the truth about life and the world around us. In the present world today, many people feel uncertain and confused about the times we are in. Rise Radio is standing up to help answer some of those questions, featuring experienced guests each week, and they discuss some of the most important issues we face in our society today, including philosophy, social narratives, belief systems, prophecies, strange phenomena, spirituality, and more, all from a Christian perspective. Many episodes up for you to listen to already. Make sure you subscribe to be notified of future releases of Rise Radio, the podcast. Stream it today on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and at the website rise.buzzsprout.com. That's Rise Radio, R-I-S-E. Go stream, download, and subscribe today.
You're listening to Rise Radio. Rise Radio.
Well, we're joined tonight by David Scott, who used to work for UK Column. He's a journalist, an activist, and now posts on Northern Exposure. David Scott, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us on Rise Radio.
Lovely to be here, David.
Do you think the main crux of this agenda is an attack on Christianity in the West?
The main crux of it, the main thrust of it, is an attack on Christianity. To the degree that the West equals Christianity, the West as well, but that's far from a perfect fit. One aspect of this is it's coming from an ideology, often termed cultural Marxism. And if you look that up on Wikipedia, you're now told it's a conspiracy theory and doesn't really exist, even though Wikipedia didn't used to say that. And books and learned journals have been written about this, and it's all very factual. But cultural Marxism, which originated with an Italian-Albanian called Gramsci, who looked at the failure of communism to take off in the West and concluded that the reason it had failed is there were cultural barriers, and those cultural barriers had to be overcome. So he decided that he would destroy these cultural barriers in order that the Marxist ideology could be triumphant. And the barriers included the church and the family. And he was quite explicit about this, that communism, socialism was going to have to replace Christianity. It was going to have to displace it. Christianity was the enemy, was the blockage to what he saw as the way forward to a very kind of secular equivalent of Thy Kingdom Come. Everyone would be transformed into the new communist man, and there would be happiness and plenty, and the state would fade away, and we would get there by first providing all power to the state, who would coerce everyone into compliance. This very incoherent ideology is what we're up against, and Christianity is absolutely in the crosshairs.
So why do you think Christianity is one of the main barriers for their agenda, for this social manipulation?
There are many ways of answering that. The absolute crux of it is Christianity is about truth, and what they are selling is a lie. Christianity is about the redemption of mankind, where mankind returns to God and obeys God and recognizes once again that God is sovereign, and essentially reverses the error that was made in the garden. The socialist view is ultimately that mankind is God. And when we realize that we are as gods, then it will become true. So it's essentially the lie that the serpent told in the garden. You are as gods. And all you need is more knowledge. All you need is the secret knowledge in order to be what you really are already. So this is the core of it. So it's the oldest argument. It's the oldest dispute, and it's still going on.
But what religion would you say that some or most of these social manipulators are? Would you say that they're Gnostics? Are they atheists who want the state to be God, or are they Luciferians? What would you say they are?
You have a variety, and all of the ones that you mentioned, I think you can find elements of that. I think when you're looking at what we're seeing now, what's termed woke, the current cultural Marxist, social justice warrior ideology, this is very Gnostic. This is secret knowledge. This is, we understand things in a way that you don't, and if you simply comply with our requirements and become a person of higher understanding, then you will see as we see. This is very Gnostic belief. There are, for certain, elements of Luciferianism, which is ultimately worship of man, right? Because what Lucifer is selling is worship yourself. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. There are no limits. You are God. It's a variety of the same thing. And what was the other one you mentioned? Luciferianism, Gnostic, and...
Well, there's the atheist side of the state is God that we've seen in the past, right?
Yeah.
With Marxism, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a very odd thing, because we've gone through in recent years the new atheist movement, right? The new atheist movement was very aggressively atheist. It was gunning for religion, any form of belief. It felt it had, via scientific analysis, the greater revealed truth that could sweep everything before it. And it decided to prove this point by being as obnoxious, aggressive, and confident as possible. All of that's gone. There's an amazing number of the former new atheists who are now on our side. They might still be atheists, some of them are, some of them are not, but they're looking at the Gnostic religion of wokedom, of social justice warriors, and they're saying, well, wait a minute, this is destroying everything that we held dear. And the penny's dropping that everything that we held dear is basically built on the foundation of Christ. Whether you believe that Christ is the Son of God or not, if you're rational, and the new atheist was a rational movement, it was looking at things in a rational way. I mean, I would argue it was wrong, but it was analyzing things in a rational way. They've concluded that, well, this new religion, this Gnostic religion, this woke religion, is destroying this thing that we love. This thing is clearly built on Christ, and we don't want it to be destroyed. So the atheist part of this, we've got half of them on our side now, which is a strange mix, but that's where we're at. So the split is very much between the woke religion, which is romantic, it's Gnostic, it's there's elements of New Age, many elements of the New Age. There's elements of witchcraft, of Gaia worship. There's all of this mysticism in there. And this is rather repelling the atheists who thought that they had discovered a rational way of understanding the world based on reason. And when they have to choose between what Christianity brings, which is entirely compatible, I would argue, entirely compatible with reason, with logic, and with a proper understanding of the natural world, heavens declare the glory of God, as opposed to what the social justice warriors bring, which is a strange mysticism and belief that doesn't have any answers. It believes that you've got to keep tearing things down, and somehow perfection will emerge once you've finished tearing everything down. So this is not a rational position, whereas the Christian position is a rational position. And therefore we are finding that a lot of the more rational atheists are actually siding with us in argument after argument, and not with the woke.
And that's something that's encouraging for sure. And I hope as some of those atheists begin to explore the Christian worldview, the biblical worldview, that they might come to find Jesus. But one thing for me that concerns me, and I just want to put this to you. I don't know if you've heard of a guy called Manly P. Hall. He's popular in the Masonic world, but he basically talked about like a humanistic utopia, which is basically humanism. And I've seen some people pushing this on the internet who see the things that are going on in the world, and their solution is like a grassroots uprising of a creating a humanistic utopia in the world. And do you think that is a danger, that some people might get drawn towards that very same philosophy from the Garden of Eden you mentioned, but through this grassroots humanism?
There are dangers everywhere. But what we're up against is a system based on deception. Right? People don't have often a very good understanding of what evil is and how evil operates. And they point at things and say that's evil, but they're not really experiencing evil. Evil, amongst other things, operates on deception, and it's really good at it, and it deceives and deceives and deceives. So you're not faced with one deception. You're faced with a vast range. There's every colour, shade, flavour of deception out there to attract as many people as possible, to deceive as many people as possible. This is how evil operates, and it's had several thousand years to build up a head of steam, and it's quite good at it. And so therefore you're going to have people putting forward various counterfeits, right? So there'll be a counterfeit. Essentially, wokedom is a counterfeit Christianity, right? It is trying to sell the same thing. And okay, the savior this is us, or the savior's the World Economic Forum or the UN. You choose your savior, but it's not God. It's a counterfeit. But it's selling redemption. It's selling absolution. It's clearly a counterfeit Christianity, and most of these things are, because another thing about evil is it's not very original. It's very cunning, but it's not creative. It will find the weak spots in people and exploit them and push their buttons, and it knows people and it knows how to deceive. But it doesn't create anything, and therefore there's nothing original in it, and this shows through as well. So you end up having multiple fake versions of Christianity in multiple areas, trying to attract as many people as possible.
Yeah, and it reminds me of the verse that says that Satan poses as an angel of light, or masquerades as an angel of light, and it's interesting you mention about that. It's almost like the post-Christian West that we're in, that people still have the remnant of the ideas and philosophies that our countries were mostly built on in times gone by, and it's almost like latching on to those things and creating it, as you say, a counterfeit form of Christianity.
Yes, and where the lie's told, it's usually sold by some reference to a good that would be a good as recognised by a Christian world. So, it will say, well, we want to end suffering, we want to end poverty, or we want to, help those who are less advantaged, or we want peace, or we want whatever they're selling. They don't come and say what we actually want is starvation, and essentially we're a death cult. It's never put forward in an open manner.
Right.
They never talk about what they're really about. You have to conclude that from their actions. But if you look time and time again, it's anti-human. I mean, if you look at the Green Movement, even the founder of the Green Movement, founder of Greenpeace, who I've interviewed, is absolutely clear on this. He says it's anti-human. The green movement's become anti-human. It's anti-life. It was founded to preserve life and to preserve the world, including humanity, and it's now become anti-human. So it becomes this death cult. It becomes something that ultimately rages against humanity, because what's Satan wanting to do? He wants to destroy humanity, all of it, everybody, because we're in the place that he wanted, and we've got to go. So it ultimately rages against humanity. It rages against life, and this can be seen in things called healthcare. This can be seen in things called environmentalism. This can be seen across the range, but it all ends up in destruction and death. Sometimes it's more obvious, sometimes it's less.
Right, because it can turn into virtue signaling as well, and it reminds me of the Pharisees in the Bible, where they were taking things that were good, essentially, but then they were seeking glory from one another, and we see a lot of this virtue signaling tied in with it. That people, or that they call it moralistic therapeutic deism. So it's like a choosing a moral cause, using it to feel better about yourself, and then turning that into an idol, into a god. And we see that a lot today, don't we?
We do. The Pharisaic approach is visible in many places. The virtue signaling is everywhere, and it's also reversed, because if you resist it, it's turned into, it becomes an attack on you, becomes a personal attack, and this has been around for a lot of years, and of course, as it's wearing on, it's becoming less and less effective because people are getting used to the tactic. But if you resist the evil will turn around and smear you, because the evil's, because it's lack of creativity and because it's not true, it has a problem. It has to have a veneer that appears to be true, but there's no depth to it. So the sort of comparison I would hold up is, if you look at a piece of human manufactured artifact, say a piece of stainless steel that's polished, it looks perfect. If you look at it in a microscope, it's all rough and uneven and jagged. If you take something that God has made, it looks perfect, like a butterfly's wing or something. It looks perfect. If you look at it in a microscope, it simply reveals another level of perfection and beauty beyond. And there's further levels beyond that are not even visible via normal optic microscope. So you've got truth, which has got no bottom, versus the lies, which is only a veneer, it's a crust. So as we've done various campaigns and work in this area, there tends to be two levels to this. Level one is there's a story, there's a pitch. They have a line, a narrative, and you get the narrative. And it sounds quite glib and convincing because people have put some effort into coming up with what this is. And it tends to be things, well, how could anyone object to that? If you do the hard intellectual work to rip apart why it's all a lie and why it will actually do the exact opposite of what is being advertised, you get to defense line 2, which is insert slur word. They're all there. You will get called everything under the sun, right? Now, if you don't buckle and you just grin and say, well, none of that's true, is it now? They don't have anything else. There's no depth to it. And all you get is it just circles round. You get the narrative again, and then you get the attack. Then you get the narrative, then you get the attack. There is no depth to evil.
So how much would you say of this stems from university?
Well, there's a question. I went to university in 1978, so I'm old, right? No, that's not right. That was high school. 83. maths and physics based, engineering science, very, by the standards of university, precise and logical and built upon precepts. And even that, which was one of the better educations available then, I reckoned it took me 25 years to overcome my education. And
wow.
The things that were taught that weren't on the syllabus are the things that got you. Things like knowledge is something that you are given or you consume or is provided for you by some sort of systematic organization. Not something that you discover and you are in charge of your own learning experience and you chart your own path, discovering truth. A very different concept. And although I wouldn't have said that I had the wrong idea about what knowledge was, looking back, I think I did. I think it took a long time to overcome that. Now, that was before the universities were actively putting in outright lies into the heads of the students. And these are just means by which the virus of Marxism will be implanted in the heads of the young people so they can go out into professional jobs with their Harvard degrees and infect the organizations they go into. The channel by which this has been done, certainly in America, has been via the education of teachers. So the first thing they captured was the education colleges. They captured education as a whole, realizing, and you got to hand it to evil. It maybe isn't creative, but by here it's dogged. They realized that if they could capture the means of education, that after 20 years they've captured the next generation.
Yeah, there's this whole concept that they're maybe teaching people what to think rather than how to think. And I think that's what you describe.
Yes, and it's a mindset, because rather than teaching them critical thinking, they're teaching them critical theory. And what critical theory is a Marxist idea where you criticize the current system,
right,
forever, ruthlessly, relentlessly, until it collapses under the weight of the criticism. Now, this is a genius plan. You got to hand it to evil here, because we live in a fallen world. If you hold up our nations, any and all of them, to the standards that Christianity says we should reach, right? It's not for nothing that God describes, compared to God, all of the nations are the fine dust of the balance. We come massively short. The best moments in history from humanity fell massively short. So when they are saying we're going to criticize, there is much to criticize. But what they do is only criticize. And if you watch this, I see it in Scottish politics, I see it in British politics. It's very, very clear once you know what to look for. They don't have a solution. They just criticize. There is no alternative that's coherent. What you're told is, look, we've told you how bad it is. Vote for us, put us into power, do what we want. And the bad thing will go away. Details to be confirmed later. And of course, they never are, and things get worse.
Yeah, because I found in the name of fighting it, they actually end up stoking it in critical theory. Mm-hmm. So they say that they're fighting oppression, but then they oppress by doing it,
It lies. Deception does this. Deception lies. It does not do what it says in the tin.
Yeah, absolutely. Very poignant points you're making about it, and I think this really leads me to consider, especially with some of the people listening tonight. Does this mean that it's better to homeschool than send them to state education?
I would have to say probably the greatest thing that you can do to fight back against the system in terms of practicality, other than preach the word of God, the greatest things to do is actually homeschool your kids, or in any other way, get them out of the mainstream system, because the mainstream system is very, very toxic. And if you're in the mainstream system, fight for your kids, and fight. You fight the forces that are pushing these things upon you. Because one of the other things it seems to rely on, people don't understand what evil is. Evil's very relentless, and it's very cruel, and it never gives up. But it's not courageous. Right? It doesn't do courage. Courage is in our side of the ledger. If you actually tackle these things head on, and you're prepared to be called all the slur words, and you're prepared to battle through that and show, no, that's you're just trying to intimidate me, and this isn't the case. Here's the facts. If you're prepared to do it, and it's very essential that you do the hard intellectual yards, and you have information and data, and it is out there. And you can say, this is what you're teaching the kids. This is where it comes from. This is what it does. This is what it's planned to do. This is the guy that invented it. This is what his lifestyle was like. Here's what he said he wanted this policy to do. Why are you teaching it to our kids? The people who are pushing these policies know none of this. And they are unable to resist the force of the argument. So if you can homeschool your kids, it's fabulous. If you can find a school that is a Christian school, there are a few in the UK, that actually has some gumption and will stand by Christ and not fold like a pack of cards, that's good too. If you're in a position where you really don't have an alternative, fight. And they will try all sorts of intimidatory tactics, but if they don't work, you'll find that they're not nearly as tough as they pretend to be. And when called on, if you do the intellectual work so that you are well versed in exactly what they are doing, know this, they are not. Right? What they are doing is following orders. Most of the people in education are just getting a salary, doing what they're told, obeying orders, not thinking too much about it. And they will do exactly what they're told. They don't know any more than that. There's a few that are activists and true believers, and they will go for you, but that's okay. That's a fight we're willing to have. The activists and true believers will expose themselves by their conduct and push back, resist, argue back, and at the very least, ask questions. Start asking questions and don't stop till you're actually satisfied with the answers. That's enough, because that critical thinking, not critical theory, that critical thinking, that questioning will destroy this, because what we're up against, whilst it's evil, it has no depth, it has no answers, and it has no benefit. Ultimately, it leads only to death.
Do you think that this ties into what Jesus said about the last days in terms of the persecution that would come to people who stood by the truth of the Bible?
It's adjacent to that. I mean, we're not quite there yet, because the sort of persecution that's described in the last days is way worse than we're seeing now.
Yeah.
So, we're not there yet, but it's you kind of can see it from here.
The groundwork being laid, yeah.
Yes. The first thing that happens, the first thing that happens in Revelation is the white horse. And the white horse looks like a religion. Right? It looks like a true religion because it's white, and it's not. It's the start of all the problems. So the thing that will galvanize, that will take all of the building blocks that we can see lying around and actually assemble it into something that's really deeply and profoundly aggressive and capable of doing everything that's described in the book of Revelation, and all of the actions leading up to Christ's return, and all of the persecution that will go towards Christians and incidentally towards Jews at that time. That needs both a political and a religious element to lead it, and that at the moment is lacking. So I think the building blocks are there, but the specific impetus to put it all together is not yet raised its head.
David Scott, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, and for sharing your ideas and your insights on the things going on in our society, and maybe how people can get through the years to come as things maybe get more and more difficult for Christians in the West. And I really appreciate it. Thanks.
David, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Are you searching for a podcast that discusses the most important issues of our day, all from a Christian perspective? Then add Rise Radio to your podcast playlist. Rise Radio explores topics that are shaping our world: philosophies, social narratives, belief systems, prophecies, strange phenomena, as well as spirituality. No topic is off limits. Rise Radio is about sharing the good news of Jesus Christ across the planet. Listen now on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, Buzzsprout, and wherever you get your podcast. Rise above the noise. Discover the truth. Tune into Rise Radio on your favorite podcast player right now.